Your mission statement, your vision is the why, the how, and the guiding principles of our company. So let's do a check-in. Is this still applicable? Do we need to revamp this? Let's start diving into what are the behaviors and action items that show that we are actually living, breathing this philosophy of our business, and then incorporating some of those changes into job descriptions, reviewing KPIs. Now more than ever is a great time for you guys to be working on that.
Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to Go Live. I'm your host, Joshua Scott. I have Samantha Leonard here with me today. This is Thursday. I've been kind of just affectionately calling this day 10 of quarantine. I know it's different for people in different parts of the country. For us, we're on day 10. But yeah, Samantha is here, owner, founder of Stream Dental HR. And gosh, Samantha, you and I were together in New Orleans just a short time ago at the Delivering Wow conference. You actually spoke. Did you speak Friday? It was Friday, wasn't it?
First day, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I closed everything up Saturday. I mean, we were out Saturday night in New Orleans on Bourbon Street and just having some fun, hanging out with everybody. And then, we flew back home Sunday, and all of a sudden, you're probably in the same situation like me, oh crap, this is a big deal. Talk me through a little bit of what that was like, just the next morning and getting on a plane and getting back to Canada.
I felt I don't know, I feel like we were kind of in this little fun bubble. We were going through the conference, we were getting ready to speak. I think my priority was I just need to nail it. I want to make sure I'm delivering some value to those who took the time and made the sacrifices to all come down there, despite everything that was happening. So I wanted to deliver. So that was my main priority. And then, like you said, I think it wasn't until I got to the airport and then all of a sudden just everybody wearing masks and just making sure that I had to be cognizant of constantly washing my hands. Oh, I just touched my face. Oh, this and this and this. And you're glued to CNN and just people messaging you just to make sure that you're safe. And I feel like once I finally got into Canada, everybody was wearing those masks. And basically they handed me at the customs gate that you are now on quarantine for 14 days. And basically just go home, and that's where you can be. So that's where I've been. Yeah, it was similar for us. We came home and probably landed at 2 or 3 o'clock, came home. I remember I turned on the TV because I just felt disconnected from all that. And they were shutting down restaurants right then. And it hit me and I was like, oh my gosh, if they shut down restaurants, everybody's going to have to cook at home. And so I better go to the grocery store. And it just became this, what was
wow.
the grocery store like?
Yeah.
What was that like for you at the grocery
store? It was I found the parking spot about 12 rows away. I got in and it was everybody was civil, but man, you could tell it was if something snapped, there was just going to be panic. And shelves are just wiped out, people just grabbing, 8 cans of beans. And I'm like, are you even going to eat that? What, but just grabbing whatever. So a little crazy for sure. So I don't know if you saw this, but the other night I was watching CNN and they did a whole thing on New Orleans and just how fast the cases are spiking.
I'm like, well, I guess time will tell.
Yeah, right. But now you went out with us. We were on Bourbon Street, and is there any surprise why those cases are spiking?
No, when we were walking through during daylight, it's completely different. And then in the evening, it was just swarmed with people. So I could see why that's a hot spot right now. Yep.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, so Monday I got up and had to kind of rally with the team. We actually did half a day office on Monday. That was before Monday night, they officially shut everything down. So we were kind of good there, but I wanted to just gather the team because I knew things were going to get crazy. But I know from your guys' end, honestly, you were probably one of the first person I was thinking about just from the HR standpoint of everybody all of a sudden having questions and what are we doing and how does this work? So talk me through that just a little bit on your guys' end. All of a sudden, did you realize Sunday, we're going to have all these questions, or was it just it started coming in and you're like keeping up?
Yeah, I think, like you said, you just don't really kind of know the magnitude of it. And it wasn't until we started hearing, and it was literally hour by hour, right? Even on the weekends, getting notifications from not only the government, but the regulatory boards in our area that officially you're going to have to close your practice indefinitely. And so as soon as we started getting that information and being aware of that, then we knew that Monday was going to be a whole new chapter for everybody. And I know Monday mornings is usually when we like to dedicate some time to kind of prepare for the week and plan out our goals and things. And that was a very sombering meeting where it was just, we all kind of put our hats on and going, what do we do? Let's kind of like figure out what's the game plan, because again, all the information that we had was you have to close down, which then led to, okay, well, what do we do with our team? Do we let them go? What are the options? And really just kind of putting all the pieces together as information was coming out. And we're still doing that. So it's just trying to, we all kind of are joking and saying that we're all feeling like we're squirrels right now, because as soon as we see like somebody sends a message about, oh, this new thing just came out, then all of a sudden we drop everything and we're focusing on that. And what can we do? What kind of guides can we give? How can we let our clients know? And everybody's been so amazing in putting together these long hours and all these resources just to help our community and our clients out right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And just so everybody knows here on who's starting to tune into the live, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Samantha has one of the leading HR firms that works with a lot of the practices we know. So anything HR related, and not too, I'll just throw questions your way. But whether you're watching it live or whether you're watching this on a replay, put them in the comments, because we'll be watching that, and I'm sure she'll love to answer those questions. I would imagine it's been like nonstop for you guys. Is that we went into quarantine, and I'm a pretty busy guy to begin with, but I was like, last week was crazy. It was nonstop, and a lot of it was phone. I don't think I've been on the phone that much in a long time. Give me a little snapshot of what it's been like for you guys.
Yeah, it's been, like you said, just nonstop questions, not only from our clients, but just the unknowns that are out there right now. There's so much uncertainty, and I know these practice owners want to do the best that they can, and they want to provide for their patients. They want to take care of their dental family and their team members. So I know this isn't an easy decision for anyone. And basically, these practice owners were basically thrust into the stage with the spotlight on them, with their patients, their team, their community watching. How are you going to handle this right now?
Yeah.
So for me, that's what I feel most for. And I want to be able to see as much as the information that we have available, just want to be able to support them. So it's been a lot of strategizing sessions with them, coming up with the different options, putting that together in webinars. I think we've been doing webinars at least once or twice a day, every day for the last week or 2 weeks. And it's going to look like continuing going forward, the same thing. But I feel like it's just, now's the time where we kind of have to figure out, what are we going to do, right? I feel like a lot of practices are waiting until the April 1st, April 2nd mark when we get some more information from the government about, all of the acts and bills that are coming into effect. So I feel like there's a lot of kind of the waiting game, but now is the time for everybody to be proactive, not just wait and see and make a decision April 1st midnight. We got to do that right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so what were some of the most common questions coming in those first couple of days for you guys from an HR standpoint?
I think it's just really figuring out how do I make sure that I'm taking care of my team, but B, not having to basically declare bankruptcy because I'm using all of my money just to float the practice overhead and not seeing patients.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the biggest question. And I still think that that's the biggest question right now.
What do you see? I don't know if you could give me maybe a percentage split of those that, furloughed or laid off their team right from the start, and those that are trying to weather this. Like, I got 2 weeks, let's just be creative. Like, what have you seen that split?
I would say 50-50 right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think we had that first wave come through of just everybody going like, man, we've got to close down, either lay everybody off, furlough. But yeah, I've been talking to some clients this week where they're like, hey, we're good. We're using it for CE. We're using it to get some stuff done. So it's been interesting. What have been I mean, I know you guys are doing all these webinars. Like what's been some of the topics of those? Like what have you guys been trying to put out there to help people with?
Definitely. So the majority of them are just kind of, what are your options right now? If you decide to keep your team on at reduced hours, if you decide to lay them off, what happens April 2nd when everything comes into effect? What are your options there? So it's really kind of putting all of those pieces together and then making sure that if we do reduce our team's hours, we want to make sure we have the paperwork and the documentation. If we furlough them, we want to give them that notice. If we're changing somebody from salary to hourly, we need to make sure we have those documents. So it's really just kind of, here's the options. If you pick A, then you must do A, B, C. If you do this, then 1, 2, 3 kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there a technical difference between furlough and laid off, or is it just kind of language?
Well, I didn't go to school for HR, but my team would probably better answer that question for you. But for me, I know it's a little bit of different lingo as well from Canadian to US in terms of that, but it's more of a temporary layoff. Okay. So for a short term, and then eventually with your position being held for the opportunity to come back.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. And then when you said like changing from salary to part-time, is that in response to like if you're open for emergencies, then obviously it's not a salary anymore, but we're just going to do it based hourly?
Yeah. So for example, if you have an office manager who is on salary and they are not going to be working the full 40 hours a week, we want to make sure that we have that paperwork to be able to reduce them and convert them to an hourly wage. So in that way, if they're working only 3 days a week, then we have that in place. And then if they're working remotely, they should also have a policy in place that outlines, here's how we're making sure that we're keeping our HIPAA, we're being in compliance with HIPAA, we're making sure that here's all the procedures and things like that you're going to be doing when you're at home, here's how we're going to be checking in with each other. So just having those processes, so in that way that office manager knows during those 24 hours I'm working from home, here's what is expected of me and how we're going to be checking in.
Yeah. Have you seen anybody get creative with this, like using vacation time, like going, hey, we just need you to use this now? Have you seen anybody do like a percentage reduction across the board of the team? Like
all of the above.
Okay. Yeah.
There's some good options as well available I believe it's only for 27 states, but there is a work share program as well. There's also partial unemployment. So there's quite a few options that are available for practices if they want to be able to supplement, their team's income, not 100%, but it's still being able to give them something, which is better than nothing, right?
Yeah. But now, like if you're still trying to maintain, like if they're on vacation, paid vacation time, or you switch over to hourly, that doesn't qualify them for unemployment though. Like as soon as you're right when you're doing that, they either have to be laid off or furloughed to apply for unemployment.
If there's a reduction in hours, and again, it depends on the state. So if there's a significant reduction in hours, so let's say, for example, if they were working 40 hours a week and then they bump down to 12 hours, then they can apply for partial unemployment to be able to supplement that. But again, it's not going to be at the normal amount that unemployment would give you, but at least they're able to, combine those two together and get some supplemental income. Yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't know that. That's smart. What are, we've got a few comments going on here. Jennifer Young says, hi guys. What's up, Jennifer? Here's a question from Josh Moore on my team. What are some of the pros and cons of each of the options? Like, yeah, I think it's a good question. Have you been if people are talking to you, are they asking for advice? Have you been advising either way?
Ultimately the practice really needs to assess at the end of the day, it's how much money do you have in the bank to be able to float this? Yeah. Because let's say, for example, after April 2nd, now that's when the act comes into place. So if that employee now gets sick, if they have to take care of a family member, if for some reason they're not able to work because of COVID-19, then you have to pay them 2 weeks. Or with the FMLA now, same thing. It could last up to 10 weeks sick time. So you got to factor that in. Can I afford to do that right now? If I was, worst case scenario. And here in HR, we always say you plan, you hope for the best, but you got to
Right.
prepare for the worst. So let's look at the worst case scenario right now. And can you do this? And
Yeah.
if the
Yeah.
answer is no, then that might not be the right fit right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, I feel like so much of this has just been case by case. Even the people I'm talking to, it's like, some have reserves and they're like, hey, we're good for 2 weeks, a month. It's not ideal, but that has to be the case. I think the question is it going to be a month, or is it going to be 3 months, or is it going to be 6 months? Because we probably don't have enough reserves for maybe 3 months or definitely 6 months. So how do we, manage that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. I'm sure are you guys on the phone a lot with your practices? I'm sure you're having to communicate a lot. Did you get that I would imagine you got that first wave of kind of like maybe freaking out. Has that kind of died down? Like, what's been your interaction?
I would say I feel just because things were changing so rapidly before that, I feel that everybody there was too much information out there. And some information, unfortunately, wasn't reliable. A lot of information that was thrown out there was just kind of generalized. But then as we started working with the client and looking at their state, sorry, that doesn't apply in your state. So there's a lot of that too. I feel like, what's the word? Paralysis by analysis, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there was a lot of that. And people were just like, just tell me what to do. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can advise you, I can give you guidance. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what's best for your business. I don't know what your bank account looks like right now, but here's some, A, B, or C, and go home, take a look, contact your CPA, see what's available, see how you can reduce your expenses for the time being to be able to float all of this. But I think now, like you said, the curve has kind of gone down. It's not as panic anymore. It's more of, okay, I've been able to deal with this curveball that's thrown my way. I've got a new game plan, and now it's just taking action.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've seen the same thing. I'm curious what the next couple of weeks are going to do, especially, you guys are on that 2 weeks. We're on a 2 weeks. I can't imagine it getting lifted this weekend.
No.
Yeah. So
love.
I know.
I don't want to be like that, Debbie Downer, but
yeah.
I'm realistic Sam, so no.
Yeah. Did you see, it might have been 2 nights ago, did you see Trump said, let's get everything reopened by Easter?
No.
Yeah. So he's been getting a lot of criticism for that. It's like, it's so weird. I feel like people are on one side or the other here. There are like the virus, I don't know, virus sensitive, virus focused, where they're like, we have to stay shut down, like 6 months, whatever it takes. And then there are like the business, like sensitive people where they're like, how can that happen? Like the world will end if businesses have to shut down that long. And so we kind of have this like tug and pull. And I think the president is probably erring a little bit more on this side of like, we need to get businesses open. And then the media is like, oh my God, how can you even talk about that right now? So it's just interesting watching that.
Yeah. And it's funny, like you said, too, the people who are actually listening to the recommendation to self-isolate and, quarantine and social distancing. And then you see on the news, like down in Florida, they're doing the, spring break still has happening a couple weeks ago. And it's like, what is happening right now?
I know. I was talking to somebody yesterday from Florida. It was a potential new client. We were just talking on the phone, and it was like his birthday over the weekend. He's like, yeah, we went to the beach. And I go, I start laughing. I'm like, I said, when CNN's doing the flyover with the helicopter, I'm like, that's you down there. And he's like, 100%. He's like, not even apologizing for it. So, yeah.
Well, owned it.
Yeah. Yeah. How familiar are you, or how much have you been staying up with the like relief bill that got passed yesterday and how that affects small business?
Yeah, we've been talking about that this morning when we first got the information. I think it's great. I think it's a great way to be able to at least give some breathing room for some practice owners.
Yeah.
From my understanding, it sounds like it's first come, first serve.
Okay.
So it's definitely going to, and of course, all of these things are just, all the details are coming out slowly, but surely all this information is being released to the public. But I mean, any type of pressure off of a business owner can give them some room to be able to sleep at night, where they can feel, okay, at least I can cover payroll, at least this is taken care of. That gives me a little bit more an opportunity to be able to see what can we do right now and kind of give us a little bit more of a game plan for long term.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that we want to keep in mind is how we handle this short term is going to not only, it could either be a Band-Aid solution, or it can really help us see how we can come out of this even stronger. So that's the thing that because right now we're kind of in this zone where we're in the house of mirrors, and all we're seeing is just all the things that we're going through.
Yeah.
And then if we kind of turn those mirrors into windows, and we can see the bigger picture and how we can actually come out of this.
So when you say that, what do you mean? Like, what's a Band-Aid solution, and what's a way we can come out of this? Are you talking about like individual practice can come out of this better, or us as a profession?
I feel both.
Yeah.
I feel, I've seen, I've heard, you and I are both on a lot of dental Facebook groups, and just kind of seeing how some people have been commenting about how their employer's been handling this, forcing them to go to work, even though they don't feel comfortable doing this.
Yeah.
Still seeing patients despite what, their regulatory boards have said, just doing emergencies only. They're still open for business, taking in new patients. Like, when you see things like that, it's really hard to see. Right.
Yeah.
And you think about it from the culture that you are creating and the message that you're giving, not only to your team, but your patients are seeing this, the community is seeing this. So what kind of message are we giving now? And, 6 months from now, are we still going to have that same team because they feel you didn't take care of me during this time?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's what's interesting is there's the economic decisions with this, but then there's just like the team culture as well. And I know so many people struggling with that. And I was on the phone with a startup earlier this week. And you may have met Brandon prior at one point, but he just said, he was like, I'm going to kind of tuck this in my back pocket as a business owner, because when this happens again with something, whether it's, this or whatever down the road, he's like, I want to be able to take care of my team through that. And running a business responsibly with margin and reserve is, it's one of those things. It's like they tell you, like, have 3 months of operating in the savings account.
But a new cone beam machine, that sounds awesome.
Right. I know. But, it's so like interesting because dentistry has become so opportunistic the last 3 to 5 years. That I think so many people, not in a bad way, but just like reinvesting into their practice and growing and expansion, whether it's technology or team or locations or associates. But I think that's hurting some right now because there just wasn't a lot they were sitting on.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
I agree. And then I feel the same thing, I actually had a couple of meetings today with a few of our startups that are not in a position right now where they have a team. They're just maybe about 3-4 months from opening. But the same thing, we said, hey, learning from this, we're going to make sure that you have this, and this policy in place, because like you said, hopefully we don't have this global pandemic, but there are going to be times where the business might need to close down because there's a natural disaster or, something else has happened. So we want to make sure that we have those, policies and procedures in there already to cover those bases.
Yeah. Yeah. This relief package, it looks like it's going to help with payroll, utilities, and rents or, mortgage. My question though is like, what's your advice on that with practice owners? Like, should they kind of bet on that and wait, or just use that as, because it's the government, right? So we're going, is that in 2 weeks? Is that in 6 months? What's kind of your overall take on just timing and availability of that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that would be, the same thing. I'm going to go back to, let's prepare for the worst and hope for the best. If this comes out and we're able to actually have that small business loan or the forgivable loans and the grants that are being offered right now, then that would be amazing. But I hate the feeling of being able, of like when you're hoping and dreaming for something and then all of a sudden something happens and like bursts my bubble and I'm just like so deflated. I hate that feeling. And so that's why I'm always, wanting to see, okay, I need to have a plan, not only plan B, but a plan like X and Y and Z. Like I want to make sure that I have all of those things covered. So in that way, feel like I'm vulnerable here. And if I have no options, then what am I to do but to go bankrupt? And I mean, I don't want anyone to ever have to go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what's tricky is because I know there are practices sitting on, reserves, but then, and some of them have lines of credit, and then we've got SBA loans and relief packages. And so you're trying to navigate all that. And so much of it's just going to be timing based. Like you just can't run out of cash first before one of those like kicks in. And I think that's where everybody's being cautious right now is like, hey, yeah, I may have reserves. I may have a line of credit, but if I use all that in the next 30, 60 days, am I done?
Yeah.
So
like you said, what if it goes 4 to 6 months, right? Then what do you do the other 2 months?
yeah. Sherry Brooks says, great info, Sam. Joe says he loves that, turn mirrors into windows. Another question, any suggestions on keeping a strong team culture during this time?
Well, I want to, and I got to say that I've been borrowing what you guys have been promoting, that it's not a time to step back. It's a time to step up. And it's so true that it's not really about what we have to do. It's what we should be doing right now as leaders, as business owners, as responsible citizens and humanitarians. Like it's our time to see other people in need, to be able to support them during that, which I know can be super difficult because when there's so much uncertainty, so much unknowns right now, it's really hard on a business owner, like their mental health, to be able to deal with the weight of the world is literally on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So it's really taking that time to breathe. It's taking that time to strategize, to recoup, and to almost kind of reflect on, why did I get into dentistry? Like, why did I decide to start my business? Kind of like light up that passion that influenced you to make this decision in the first place, and take that risk as a business owner to open your doors, to, get that huge loan to be able to build this business and build this dream. So I feel like reconnecting with that is going to help spark that fire back up. Then it's going to be much easier for you to get your team excited as well. And even if you still have your team, or if they're laid off right now, I feel that you shouldn't go radio silent. Like you've been knee to knee working with some of these team members for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Like they're an extension of you, of the business. They're like your work family. So even just sending a text to just say, you know what, I miss you. How are you doing? How's the family? How are the kiddos? Just having that connection. It doesn't have to be work related. In fact, I recommend for the first little bit, not being work related, just reconnecting with them. That's what's going to be really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I was having that thought this morning of like, so many of us produce content and, produce things to help people. And I think, if all you were doing was producing that, I mean, that's kind of our profession, but if all you're doing is serving, if all you're doing is providing a service or producing content for monetary gain, I think you step back during this time and that you're kind of like, oh my God, what do I do? But I think if you're producing content or serving other people to like give to others, then you immediately step up in this time and you're like, okay, like how can I help? And so much of it, I know you've been a great example. I've seen you everywhere on social media the last 10, 11 days. But so many of us just kind of stepping up and going, people need help. And we're not like, we produce content and there's a business there and there's a whole economy with that business that I have to like protect. But at the same time, I'm like, that's not the why, the why is because we're trying to help people. And so then when something like this happens, it's like, okay, how can we step up and help? And I know you've done the same thing. Yeah.
And along those lines as well, the owner being able to communicate with the team, but the team, each of us in a business, no matter what role you play in that business, we are all leaders. And so we all contribute to that culture. So, I would definitely encourage team members just to even check in with your doc, because they probably need to hear that encouragement from you, because they made one of the most difficult decisions they probably have ever had to make before in their business. So giving them that support and saying, I understand your hands are tied. I know you want the best for me and for the business. I want the best for you. Like just a simple text message or a phone call to say, thank you, I appreciate everything, and I'm excited to work with you when I get back. But, if you think about it, because it can seem really easy for a team member just to kind of get into that victim mode. Like, I lost my job.
Yeah.
Oh, why did they let me go? We kind of can beat up that situation with that. But then when you think about it, what your employer made the best decision to keep you safe, to keep the community and the patient safe.
Yeah.
What if it was the opposite? What if they forced you to come to work, or you felt like, they weren't helping you and supporting you? Wouldn't you look at them differently?
Yeah.
Right? You would probably second guess, would I want to come back and work for this person again?
Right.
This person is, that owner is really taking your health and everybody else into consideration too.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's a really good point. And I love that. Like last Friday, I put up we use a platform called Slack with our team to communicate. And so just so much of the team stepping up and doing things and publishing pieces. And I mean, some of this language has been mine. A lot of it's been our other team. Like when you said, don't, what was it? Step up, don't step back, that type of thing. That was Joshua Moore on our team, wrote that piece. And so like Friday on Slack, I was just like, you guys have been life this week, knowing that I'm not in this alone. Because I think that's what business owners feel, is that isolation. They feel like the weight's all on them. And so I think that's huge. It's going both ways. Business owners reach out to your team reach out to your business owners, for sure.
Definitely. I mean, even just like you said, just shooting off some words of encouragement. You guys can even kind of start your own. There's so many things right now that you guys, can be doing together through like FaceTime. Sherry was actually telling me the other day, she's on our team. She was saying that Netflix now you can do like a home watching party. So you can invite other people to watch a movie with you. So why not do that with your team, or have, like some FaceTimes where we're just checking in with each other, or working out together, or, just something just to kind of be more on the positive side.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I love that. Get some type of communication. I mean, a lot of practices I've been using, like private Facebook groups to stay in touch and to communicate. I don't know how you guys are. We were very remote based and independent. And so things like online project management software, communication systems like Slack, we had all that set up. So we had very little time wasted in changing communication systems. Did you guys have much of that, or is your team kind of set to work remote?
Yeah, we were, it was funny because we all work remotely, but I was literally about to sign a lease for us to kind of go and have a working space together. So because of all of this, we kind of put that on hold. But I mean, along the lines of what you were saying, that most practices, they're not working remotely, right? Like they're used to working in patients' mouths, in the chair, in the office. So for even switching that mentality and that process is totally different. And so that's another thing that we've been working with offices on, how to set them up, to work remote, because there are so many tools that we use that I'm sure you guys are using too, where you guys can still connect using Zoom and use all these Asana. Like we use Microsoft Teams, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But it's a great tool just to keep us all on the same page and working together from home.
Yeah, I would say that's a really practical piece of advice through this, is don't just go, hey, well, we don't work remote because everything we do is in person. I'd say, how can we work remote during this time? Whether it's 2 or 3 times a week, whether it's 1 time a day, we're all getting on a set time, whether it's social, whether it's actual productive. I think that's huge. Our society is going to do nothing but move that way. Whether in dentistry it just becomes a CE type of deal, or whether there is a little bit more of that. But I think that's huge advice. Michael Arias jumped on. He said, my people. Dan O'Rourke is on here. I don't know if you've met Dan before. He's a great guy. He's a great angle. Amy Morgan has a question. We're a very large practice, not corporate owned, with over 100 employees. Do you have any advice on what to do to keep morale due to a layoff? There are only 5 of us that are still employed until this blows over. And you may have answered some of this earlier, but what are your thoughts?
So my recommendation for the 5, so I'm assuming that the 5 are kind of like the executive, the management team. So I still think that every management team should be working and meeting together at least every day for at least 60 to 90 minutes. Now, this is your kind of strategizing time. And I know you heard me kind of talk about this at the Delivering Wow Summit when I was speaking, but starting off by doing like a SWOT analysis on the business
Yeah.
and really kind of figuring out where do we want to take the practice, not only when we open the doors, but also where do we see ourselves in 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Then reverse engineer that to create your action plan, review your job descriptions. One of my favorite exercises and what we do when we work with our clients is having them to review their vision, mission, core values. Because sometimes, especially as a large corporation, a large practice, I'm assuming that was probably started a couple years ago and then, slowly grew over time. So that mission statement might be 5 years old, might be longer.
Yeah.
And your mission statement, your vision is the why, the how, and the guiding principles of our company. So let's do a check-in. Is this still applicable? Do we need to revamp this? Let's start diving into what are the behaviors and action items that show that we are actually living, breathing this philosophy of our business, and then incorporating some of those changes into job descriptions, reviewing KPIs. I'm all about business strategy. So I feel like this now more than ever is a great time for you guys to be working on that, and then using that time to, again, each individual checking in with those team members. I'm not too sure if they're all still working remotely or they're temporarily laid off, but just still connecting with them. If you guys can do some strategy sessions with them, if it's not going to impact their unemployment, and really just taking that time just to work together and getting that game plan. And then as we hopefully get closer to figuring out, when the end date is going to be for this, maybe if that's a month or two from now, then that's when we should still start to reconnect with our team and letting them know and updating them. So in that way, they're not sitting in the dark for the next month or so, right? We want to regularly communicate and update them on what's going on, what's happening, how are we, working all together behind the scenes to get everything up and running so we can see you again.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think we've actually surprisingly have had we've had a decent new client flow the last 10 days, which kind of surprised me. But the other side of it with their point of view was we've got time to work on this now. We've been trying to get to this and we're just always so busy. And we thought our brand needs attention and we need to take the next couple of weeks to work on it. So, it's just people see opportunity in different things. Amy says, she went on to say, we have two locations. We're seeing over 450 patients a day. So this is soul crushing to a practice like ours. We love our staff so much and want to maintain a good relationship with them. And I like what you said. Is it just I think there's the furlough or the layoff, and that can tend to go like it's binary, black and white. You were with us, now you're not. And so we lose communication. What I'm hearing you say is don't get into that. Stay in touch. Is it okay to even ask a team that you've furloughed to once a week jump on some type of Zoom or FaceTime or something?
So you definitely want to leave that voluntary, right? Because if you're saying that it's mandatory, then essentially compensation needs to happen, right? Which then is going to impact their unemployment and how much they're getting with that. So definitely leave it voluntary. Another thing too that I would recommend, especially since you guys, it sounded like they had a really great culture, really close-knit team. Why not just order them a book through Amazon, send it to them. You guys can kind of do a mini book club together, just so in that way we're all still kind of keeping interaction with each other. We're all still filling our minds with positive things and getting them recharged and excited to jump back into the business, into the practice when they get back. I think would be another great way as well. But along your points, definitely having some meetings, but, reiterating that this is voluntary.
Yeah. Let me turn our attention to reopening. What are some of the challenges that are going to come with that from an HR standpoint? I almost picture this you go to reopen, you have appointments on the books, yet you've got this huge, all these appointments that need to be rescheduled, and that new patient flow should resume. So in a sense, the whole team should be needed, but yet there may not be cash flow to even support that. So what are you foreseeing and advising?
So again, preparation is key. So I think having a game plan and mapping that out right now is crucial. Because like you said, if we just cancel the patients, they're off of our books, then that's going to put a lot of time for your administrators to, they probably need to start. If, let's say, for example, if the starting date was May 1st, they should be in at least a week beforehand, starting to contact those patients, starting to get the ball rolling. So in that way, we do have a full schedule, and we're not all just walking in May 1st going, so what do we do? I don't know, right? And then that's the same energy that patients walk into.
Yeah.
And they're probably walking on eggshells because we've all been isolated for the last month and a half. So now is that time to really figure out what's that strategy look like, and how are we going to be, like you said, maybe just booking until we fully book this one column for hygiene appointments. Then once that's fully booked, then we're going to get the second person booked in that column, so that we know how many people do we need to have coming back. Is it going to be full? Is it going to be partial? And, really just kind of figuring what that all looks like. And then along the lines of, reopening, I think a lot of practices who didn't have HR kind of felt a little bit more vulnerable and exposed when all of this happened, because there was no paperwork. There was nothing to really fall back onto. So my suggestion, just with the HR hat on, use that time right now to get that all organized, because you want to make sure that if we're starting on a fresh slate, if this is a brand new chapter, we want to make sure that all of that is outlined, written out, so everybody knows we're all on the same page.
Yeah. No, I think that's so smart, and it's wise advice. And it's not even you selling something. Like, I think right now it's, and you've seen this too, is like people start freaking out, and people start trying to sell stuff too, and doing deals and all that. And I get a lot of that. I get, like, it's affecting everybody, and we're all scrambling, and it's coming from a place of just like, we're all trying to keep our businesses going. Some of it doesn't quite feel right. It's kind of like, man, just pause on that for a second. But I think with you, like you said it really well. I mean, it probably exposed some things, and that's not a good exposure that you want as a business owner. And so this is a really good time to make sure. I would imagine most people just don't have adequate HR coverage resources. So, I don't know. I don't look at this as a sales pitch from you. I'm like, no, this is like super smart. Like, you should be doing this as a business owner.
Yeah. Thank you. And, that was definitely not my intention to come across, hey, come to me.
Yeah,
but it's as, like you said, it's as if we're looking at this, we're all exposed right now as business owners, right? So now's that time to be able to make sure that, hey, I don't want to feel like this and be in this position ever again.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that I have my strategy, my game plan for reopening. And if anything ever came like this again, I'm prepared. Like Brandon was saying, I've got this in my back pocket. This is a learning experience. I'm learning from this, and I want to grow from this. And that's the next step. Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Just a couple more questions. How are you doing personally? How are you holding up?
Good. If I keep saying that, no, I'm just, it's definitely been a very, very stressful couple of weeks. It's definitely, from when we've had this company for the last 5 years, it's been amazing working with startups, with, large and small practices, with DSOs, to really help them create that culture. And so to be forced to working with practices to do the opposite, to have them, either figure out, who am I keeping, who am I letting go? Like, that is definitely, like for me, I'm a positive, I'm optimistic kind of person. So this kind of feels really draining.
Yeah. Yeah. What have your evenings been looking like? Have you been able to kind of relax? Are you working? Are you binge watching something? Like, what does 7:00 tonight look like for you?
Still working.
Yeah.
I think yesterday was the first time that I actually was able to finish at 7, and I bought a new book, so I wanted to dive into that and started reading that. But yeah, that was probably my first early day.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine some of this, like, I think that last week it was weird for me because everybody's on this like almost mandatory spring break, and yet I'm just like busy. And, and I've got a pile of books. And I'm like, well, yeah, it'd be nice to get to some of these and house projects. But I would imagine at some point though, it's also, you got to go, it's best for me to find some of that time as well to disconnect, get into a book, like do a project around the house, something like that too.
Yeah, definitely. That's my goal this weekend. I've been jealous of all the things I've been scrolling on Instagram and seeing people like trying recipes, baking. I'm like, I want to do that. So
Yeah.
that's my goal this weekend.
Yeah. What's like right now, what are some of your go-to keep your mindset strong? Like when you have those moments and it's just is a little overwhelming, what are you doing to get through that time?
Um, I'm a very spiritual person, so I definitely, turn to the Bible and try and get some encouragement and some positivity from that.
Yeah.
Definitely some business books. And I love to laugh, so anything that can take my mind off. So usually you can see me watching Friends. I've watched that a million times, and I know every episode inside and out. So I usually just watch that just to turn my mind off and just have a good laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Joanne and I jumped back into Parks and Rec again.
Yeah.
It was the week before this started, but it's been awesome. I mean, our kids are staying up later, right now it's almost like summertime hours, and by the time it's like we get them in the bed, it's 10. And then, we're going to pour a glass of wine and put on some Parks and Rec and just like forget about the world for an hour. So yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't watched Parks and Rec, so I'm going to have to start that next.
It's so funny. Do you like The Office?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll love Parks and Rec. The only thing I'll tell you is that the first season, just get through it. It's a little. It took them just a little while to get into it, but I mean, we're in like season 2 or 3, and it just hits its stride. It's so good. It's hilarious. And then stay right there 1 second.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if have you ever heard of Rumi?
No.
So it's this like Parisian poet guy, and I've seen people online quote him, but so it's like poetry, but it's like spiritual poetry. And a friend of mine gave this to me for my birthday a couple of weeks ago, and it's just really, really good. So I've just been getting into this in the morning and kind of just getting my mindset right and almost like putting into myself, before it all gets like pulled out type thing. So
Well, thanks for that recommendation. I just got I just bought it and I started reading it. The Hard Part of Hard.
Oh, yeah. What is it? The hard thing about hard things. What?
Yes.
I have it right here. Hold
Look at
on.
all those books, and you got them color coded.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's in my black. Like it's over with the blacks on that side. Yeah, the hard thing about hard things. What are you thinking about that?
I read 5 chapters last night. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into the other parts, because he's just kind of explaining his journey of the companies that he built, and then basically it went down to zero and then rebuilt it again to selling it to $1.6 billion. And so now he's kind of like dissecting the lessons that he's learned. So I'm kind of starting that point. So it's pretty good. I like it.
I love that. I think, I don't know that I see, there's not a lot of books out there that come from a CEO's perspective and talk about building a business. And so when I find one like that, I love it. And I feel like that was his kind of unique take on it. Is like, I'm a CEO, I'm building a business, and this is what's been really hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you liked it? So I should keep reading it?
I would. Yeah. I was just looking through, I underlined a lot. I mean, so yeah, I'm even, I'm all the way through the book, just tons of underline. I write in my books. I don't know how you are.
Yeah. I like to highlight.
Yeah.
I just switched from Audible to, I was missing holding the book.
Yeah.
And like you said, highlighting it, because you'd listen to it and you're like, oh man, that's so good. But how do I go back to, re-listening to that part again? Right. So I went back to the original books.
I know. I think I did about a year on, I got the Amazon, is it Amazon? Is a paper white, I was reading books on that. And I just can't, I don't know. I have to like write and underline and highlight and fold the tab and, I don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm starting to get that. Have you read The Obstacle is the Way? That's another good book that
okay.
be picking up right now. That one is really powerful to kind of get through the hardest things, the hardest decisions you've had to make, and, figuring out a way to get through it, or, to be able to get that, that mindset to deal with whatever comes your way.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that's a great book right now for sure. Ryan Holiday's a good author too. Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm going to let you go here. Last question. What's for dinner tonight? You guys, you doing takeout? Are you cooking? Like what's?
Yes, I'm getting back to cooking again. So I'm making a turkey taco bowl tonight.
Oh, nice. That sounds
Mhm.
fantastic. That's
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
Good.
How about you guys?
Yeah, I meal plan. I do a lot of the cooking, especially when I have time and I'm around. So I think, actually tonight I laid out a flank steak with some Brussels sprouts. I think I'm gonna do it all on the grill, cast iron pan on the grill. And yeah,
Nice.
so
Nice. That's it.
yeah.
Roast beef for tonight. I'll be jealous when I'm eating my turkey taco bowl, but
No, yours sounds amazing
gourmet
too.
meal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, look, stay strong, take care of yourself too. And I know you guys I really, really appreciate you doing all the work that you're doing, and just even being a resource for us. I know when I have clients ask, it's really easy to just point them your direction, and let them know you're going to take great care of them. So you have a really important role through this. I appreciate you stepping up for sure.
Same. I mean, what you guys are doing is just amazing to be able to support these practices, because I know it's not easy as well for them to be able to figure out, like, what am I going to do for marketing? Does this mean do I put an end on this? And what you guys have done to really kind of put together a strategy for them, put some speakers together as well to offer support in other areas of their business. So you guys are awesome. And I can't wait to rewatch your video for delivering wow. Honestly, you are an amazing speaker.
Oh.
You probably heard me in the crowd. I was the one who was like yelling back at you because I was getting right into it. You're an amazing speaker. So I can't wait to watch that again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it'll be fun when that re-airs. That stage, that environment, it was a little crazy, right? You get up there and so much light, such a big stage. I don't know about you, you kind of felt disconnected a little bit. Like you heard people talking and you knew there were people there, but you just like almost had to just like go and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Had to kind of be in the zone, and I had like some technical difficulties with my video, and halfway, like 2 seconds in, I'm like, you know what, whatever, like what can I do? So
Yeah.
I just you kind of had to just improvise, right? So
I know. You know what? Surprisingly, that was, I think from a technical standpoint, that one was pretty perfect for me. But that doesn't like always happen. We did the VIP day and just had all kinds of issues with 2 days before with mics and the presenter not working and just all that. And so it's one of those, when you have that, it's so hard sometimes to recover from it. So I was really, really thankful. Everything just went pretty well. So I felt happy with that one.
You did amazing.
Yeah. I mean, probably you're probably the same way. Is like your self-criticism is you get done and you're like, oh, this wasn't perfect. That wasn't perfect. People are like, you did a good job. I'm like, no, I didn't. I messed this up.
Enemy.
Yeah, for sure.
No.
Yeah.
Feel that.
Well, it was fun being there with you. Definitely look forward to doing way more of those. So yeah, if you need anything, please reach out. Guys out there online and watching this on the replay, feel free to leave any more questions. Amy Morgan, by the way, says, great idea. Thank you both so much. So you're welcome, Amy, and feel free to reach out to Samantha as well. They're on your own. So awesome. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good weekend. Do some things for yourself.
Yeah. Back to it.
Yeah. All right, Samantha, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're super busy. I really appreciate it.